So, Hector, you're running in the New Jersey's 8th congressional district. I know that's a fairly, I guess, well, not too new, but it's a relatively new congressional district, maybe about 12 years or so. What give us some sense of what that district is like.
Sure. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on, Sam. It's a pleasure. I'm running in the 8th district, and the best way to describe it is that it's the Hispanic gerrymander in New Jersey. So essentially, my district encompasses most of Hudson County, which is the area right across from Manhattan, Jersey City, Hoboken, a small city called West New York, as ironic as that is. And these towns have a large Hispanic population, and there are also a couple of random towns sort of cut into the district for the fact that they also have a fairly large Hispanic population, and that would be places like Elizabeth, Belleville, and Fairview. So really the best way to describe my district is as the Hispanic gerrymander.
Interesting. And what's the and give us a sense of like the economic situation there. And before you do, maybe I'm just fascinated by that. What was the theory behind this? Is the idea that incumbent protection on both sides of the lines drawn?
Yeah, absolutely. So the district right next to mine is the 10th district, and that is the black gerrymander. So there are certain towns in my district that are literally cut in half between the black portions of those towns and the Hispanic portions of those towns. And that's essentially, I guess, under the most Machiavellian terms, is to pander to the local populace of those towns, is to say, okay, well, we'll throw you a bone by making sure that your racial group is forever protected and forever has a representative seat in government. And you know, I guess you can sort of try to see it under benevolent auspices, but in the way that it operates is absolutely Machiavellian and kind of disgusting from my perspective.
Give me a sense of, I mean, it does sound a little gross, frankly. With that said, you've got to run in that district. It's you get the district that you get, So, Hector, give us a sense of what are the concerns of folks in the 8th district?
All right, great. So the 8th district is very working class, a lot of immigrants, right? A lot of Hispanics. So there are a lot of people coming to the country, a lot of blue collar workers. So the main concerns are really these working class concerns around affordable housing. Affordable housing is absolutely non-existent in my district. Mostly because of developers who have bribed the local politicians. They put up these really expensive high-rise buildings that essentially nobody in the district could afford to live in. So we're really importing very rich people from New York City who want to work in New York but live in New Jersey, and they'll come over and they'll buy these really expensive high-rise condos. A certain son-in-law to the current president has a building in Jersey City. I'm not sure if you get who I'm talking about, but I'm sure you do.
I would imagine.
And he owned a high-rise, which is really emblematic of this problem. He puts up a high-rise on the waterfront of Jersey City. Absolutely nobody in our district could afford to live there. And I'm sure you'll recall there was a little bit of a scandal with them selling these $1 million visas from Chinese investors.
Wow. And so we're talking about what appears to be a growing wealth inequality in that district, right? You have attempts at least some measure of gentrification to use your district as basically a commuter launching pad for the city. Yet the infrastructure and the daily lives of the people who are living in your district, it sounds like, is not improving because all the moneyed interests are just going into catering to wealthy Manhattan commuters.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And that's absolutely the situation that we have in terms of housing, in terms of mass transit infrastructure, in terms of education. So my district has, at the same time, some of the best schools in the state and in the country, and also some of the worst schools in the state and in the country. And that really highlights how essentially the zip code where you're born can really determine your lot in life, which is something I was born to believe wasn't the case in America, that no matter where you were born, no matter who you were born to, you had an equal shot at being a successful individual and joining the middle class. But unfortunately, yes, because our local politicians are all they're on the take from the real estate developers, from the pharmaceutical lobbies, various other interests that are in control here in New Jersey, it's really becoming a state of the haves and the have-nots, where the haves essentially have everything, and everybody else is told to struggle over crumbs and fight each other over what should be shared prosperity.
So, Hector, give us a sense of your story, where you grew up. I'm over at your website at Oseguera2020.com, Oseguera 2020.com. You grew up in Hoboken. Tell us, or I should say you were born in Hoboken. What else can you tell us about your time in the district?
So, yeah, I am a lifelong resident of the district, and I've been accused on more than one occasion of having a bubble and sort of being stuck to this district. I went away to Boston for undergrad. I studied poli-sci at Boston University, and I also got my law degree in Boston. But something always draws me back to the district, and it's really because that's where I feel at home. That's what I know as home. I was raised in that very tiny city of West New York, right? It's like the most ironic thing in the world. It is a 1 square mile city that is one of the most densely populated places in the entire country. And, I had a regular working class upbringing. My mother's a teacher. My father did every job under the sun. He was a truck driver. He was a handyman. He was a plumber, an electrician, anything that you can do with your hands coming to this country as an immigrant. He and my mother did to give me and my sister the best possible life we could have. And so that's really the basis from which I've sprung. And, living here my entire life, I am not unfamiliar with the incumbent. He was actually my hometown mayor. His wife worked at my elementary school when I was a child. So I know these people, and I know how the system works. And essentially, it's a machine, right? The politics in New Jersey is really akin to something out of the 1800s with smoke-filled rooms, old fat guys with cigars deciding the destiny of everybody in their district. And that's really what I've lived under, is a very tightly controlled political situation where outsiders are not welcome. If you are not part of the good old boys club, you are essentially told to get in line and wait your turn, if you ever get a turn. And I just essentially got sick of it. People here, everybody deserves a shot. This is a democracy, or so I've been told. This sort of like oligarchy that we live under is absolutely unjust. It stomps over people. It really takes advantage of everybody. A quick story I could share with you is that if you work in the public sector in my district, if you're a teacher, if you're a firefighter, if you are a crossing guard, if you work for the Board of Education or any public service employee, what you will come to find is that the local politicians come to you every election season and tell you that you have to canvass for the local politician. You have to go to galas for the local politician, where they essentially extort $100, $150, $175 donations from every public service employee in the district. And if you dare to fight back, you will find yourself unemployed. When I launched my campaign, I told one of my high school teachers about this campaign, and he said, "You know what, Hector, I love you. You're a great guy. I know you would make a great congressman. But if I ever say anything in support of you, I'll be dumpster diving to feed my children." And, that's not something most people are willing to risk.
You basically told us about the 8th Congressional District. You said it was a gerrymander where that basically was to create a safe Hispanic seat in New Jersey. This is a district that has enormous wealth disparity. right across the river from New York City. It is becoming increasingly a commuter spot with high rises. Meanwhile, services for people who have been living in the district all their lives in some of the places are lacking. There's a lot of old boy network in New Jersey, a lot of like patronage, pay to play type of stuff. You're running against Albio Ceres. Tell us a little bit about this Democrat that you're challenging in this district.
Sure. So, like I said, he was my hometown mayor when I was a kid, and he comes directly out of the New Jersey political scene. He's a Cuban refugee, and one of the reasons that I decided to run against him in this, very tightly controlled district is that, like I said, it's a Hispanic gerrymander. And a couple months back, a wonderful group of activists went to his office and asked him something that I thought was very practical. At the height of the immigrant detention center crisis, these activists organized, went to his office and said, not will you abolish ICE, which might be a great ask anyways, but they didn't even ask for that. They said, would you at least cut funding to ICE or at least stop the increase in funding to ICE, freeze the spending that is going to ICE? In a Hispanic district where, everybody's a Democrat, you would think that'd be something very practical to ask. But he said, absolutely not. He said, I will never vote to cut funding to ICE. ICE does great work. And again, that comes at the height of the immigrant detention center crisis. Yeah. And it was almost like a slap in the face of the people that he represents. On top of that, on Valentine's Day, I'm not sure if the name Elliot Abrams rings a bell to you.
It sure does.
But great. Well, on Valentine's Day, my opponent takes a picture cozying up with Elliot Abrams.
Just to remind people, he was a Reagan official. He was also, during the Bush years, he was one in the State Department promoting war with Iraq. He was doing all sorts of horrible stuff in Central America in terms of death squads and whatnot. Bad stuff.
Yeah, so seminal trainer of death squads, pusher of regime change in Latin America, never found a war he didn't like, and is currently the Trump administration's main pusher of regime change in Venezuela. So this is a guy who he was actually convicted for lying to Congress during Iran-Contra. So this is not a good guy, and definitely not somebody that the people of my district would agree with, and definitely not someone that they'd like to see their congressman cozying up with. So that's essentially who I'm up against. He's a corporate Democrat, takes a ton of money from the pharmaceutical industry, and won't sign on to Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All. He actually won't even say the words Medicare for All. For months, he has been ducking a group of climate change activists that want to ask him just his opinion on a Green New Deal, not any hard commitments, nothing crazy, nothing serious, just what do you think, and will not do it. He would not meet with them. He's never held a town hall in his entire term in Congress. He will never hold a town hall. He says that he'll never hold a town hall. He's not very... he's not really there when it comes to policy, the policies that would make our district a better place for the working class people that inhabit the district.
Hector, I got a two-part question. One is,
sure,
how is this guy getting reelected? And two, how do you defeat him? What is it? What is your strategy here?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So how does he keep getting reelected? That is a great question. So New Jersey, like I said, is a very tightly controlled political atmosphere. There's something called the county line, which I think you should do a little bit of looking into. I invite all of viewers to look into, but essentially it's a tool that the political machine or the political establishment uses to perpetuate themselves forever. It essentially lines up politicians from the local district or municipality level all the way up to the senator and up to the presidency. And around election time, you will see massive posters in the district that all it says is one letter, the letter A, vote line A. So another thing that the establishment does is that it maintains the line, and it always gets line A. even though the line is supposed to be randomly chosen, somehow the establishment types are constantly getting the first line that you see. So it's lined up in alphabetical order. So line A obviously is the first one you would see. And all you have to do is vote down the line, from president down to your Board of Education. Vote line A. You'll see a lot of posters with no officials' names on them. If the names are there, they're very small. All you see is a huge letter A. Vote line A. And that's constantly what people do. We call it out of inertia, because these are the people who have always been in charge, and they essentially plan to always be in charge, using these sorts of tricks to get themselves, it's a very sick psychological trick that is played on the voters. And there are activists who are now working in New Jersey to abolish the county line.
Right. It's a slate. Right. Of course. I mean, it gives you a huge advantage. Ballot placement like this, and to have it just a sign off is, I mean, people do that with parties sometimes as well. All right. Well, so Hector Oseguera, we just had about a minute and a half left. What's your strategy? How do you defeat that?
Okay, so how do we beat this machine? Honestly, it's not as big a pull as people think it is, because things have been so tightly controlled for so long. This machine projects strength that's not there. So we go out, we talk to people. I've been holding meet and greets all across the district, and the energy is absolutely tremendous. People are really excited to have another option. My opponent has never had a real challenger to his fiefdom. And so we are going out there, we're talking to people, getting out there in the streets and letting people know that there is an option this year, someone who's from the area, someone who knows what the issues are. And honestly, I think that there's a tremendous amount of energy, and I think that we can really pull this one off, and we can kick this machine in its backside.
There's a lot of similarities, it seems to me, between your race and AOC's race. Insofar as that you have maybe a overconfident incumbent who is relying on both like inertia, like you say, and a party apparatus that with enough people can be beaten. With 30 seconds left, I imagine one of the things you're looking for is volunteers. I'm looking at your Oseguera2020.com website, and volunteer is even ahead of contribute.
Yeah, so this is going to be a campaign that's grassroots and powered by people. So I invite all the listeners, everybody in America, to check out Oseguera2020.com and sign up to volunteer. We will take all the help we can get, and we're definitely, relying on that grassroots energy to carry us across this finish line. Just really quickly, you said that there are some similarities between me and AOC, and I would harp on that ad infinitum. So I went to BU at the same time that AOC did. I volunteered for her congressional campaign. A lot of the people who gave me early advice were volunteers and people who worked on her congressional campaign. And if you check out 538, they do a district analysis of demographics, and the district closest to mine is New York 14, which is her. Yeah, so there are a lot of similarities there. I would never, shy away from drawing comparisons to AOC, and I really do believe that the emphasis is there for someone to, take out this corporate Democrat who absolutely does not represent the district.
Hector Oseguera, Oseguera 2020.com. Yep. Hector, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.